So real quick, what was your big takeaway outside of the Deshaun setback stuff from being at Andrew Berry's end of season presser today?
I was a little surprised that he said the Ken hiring was on Kevin. I thought that they would say all decisions they make are collaborative.
Yeah.
But then if you say that, then it makes it sound like the coach doesn't have power over his own staff. So he said it was Kevin's call to hire Ken. I loved how much he tried to dance around all of the Deshaun questions. That was just fascinating. And beyond that, I don't know. There was nothing really overwhelming, I thought. There was no great big takeaway from it. I thought he tried to be as honest as he could in the moment. There's
more than in the past, I felt.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can say when you're 3-14. There's not, you have to sit there and wear it. You have to own it. And I thought, I was traveling yesterday, so I wasn't at Kevin, but I saw highlights of it, and I thought both of them, when you talk about taking accountability, I thought that they did. Like, what else do you want them to say? You want them to set themselves on fire and throw them, you know what I mean? Like, they did everything that they could. They said, yeah, this is a disaster. This wasn't good enough, and we have to be better. And now ownership has decided that they're going to get that opportunity to fix the mistakes, and we'll see what they do. But I didn't think that there was any great big headline other than the Deshaun setback.
I thought the comments. I mean, I don't know. Not everybody finds this interesting, and kind of like G doesn't want to have the conversation about every day you don't want to have a conversation. Oh, they should have fired Stefanski. We got to move on. I think a lot of people feel the same way about the Baker conversation because what's the point at this point? But I did think it was interesting because his answer about Baker is kind of what I've been saying the whole time. Listen. We can't deny Baker's head. There's some people on Twitter trying to make excuses for why Baker's having a good season. Baker's having a fantastic season.
He's having a great year.
He's having a fantastic year. He's been a top 10 quarterback this year. You could, not quite top 5, but he's been a top 10 quarterback this year. He's having a tremendous season. And yesterday, if you watched that game, he and they were playing lousy for 2.5 quarters, and it looked like they were going to blow their chances to get into the playoffs. And then he had 2 drives at the end of the game where he was fantastic.
And that was always his biggest problem.
It was the first. In fact, yesterday was the first game Baker Mayfield's ever won when he was losing by 10 or more points. So listen, the guy deserves a ton of credit. He has been fantastic for them. He's their starting quarterback. We can't crap on him. It's unfair. That being said, what Andrew Berry said, he was pretty honest about it. He goes, "Hey, listen. Sometimes it's a situation." You learn, you grow as a person,
he
did grow as a player.
He mentioned personal growth for Baker suddenly.
Exactly.
And that's what we've been saying.
Baker wasn't the same guy here.
No, he had – it's revision – I don't even want to go through it again.
It's revisionist history to say it was a stupid trade at the time. There was not a organization in football that thought Baker Mayfield was a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson at the time. And it turned into a disaster.
Even beyond that, you had a decision you had to make on his future.
Yeah.
And they were not in a position where they did not feel comfortable investing $35-40 million a year into him, given some of his personal hang-ups.
But don't you think at the end of the day you wear that?
Yes, in the end it didn't work out. Yes. I don't blame fans for being mad that they moved on from Baker. There were legitimate reasons at the time to do it. But I don't blame fans for being mad about it.
In hindsight now of having more time because at the time you had 2 years of Kevin. He was great in 2020. They were great together. 21, obviously, he had the injury and whatever else, and it all went off the rails, and then that was it. Now seeing more of what Kevin wants to do on offense, I think it probably could have worked with Baker. But if you got this version of Baker, it would have worked. There's no guarantee you got this version of Baker without him going to Carolina and L.A. And having to be humbled and humbling himself and seeing that, he wasn't the guy. He wasn't Patrick Mahomes. He thought he was Mahomes. He tried to play like Mahomes and Allen. He's not that guy. And going through the failures, I think, helped him grow as a person to where now, this version of Baker could succeed here. And I also wonder how that shapes and scopes what they look for in their next quarterback going forward with Kevin. That, you don't need necessarily Mahomes and Allen to run this system. I'll keep saying it. And yes, Brock Purdy did not have a good year this year. If you put a Brock Purdy type in this system, you're going to have success in this offense because Kevin is trying to run San Francisco's offense. They just keep giving him quarterbacks who throw it to the other team. And then who's Deshaun, who won't throw it down the field at all.
So this is why Earl brought this point up, and I'll steal it from him. We've been told over and over and over again that in this draft there are no quarterbacks. If Kevin Stefanski comes to you and says, I like Cam Ward or I like Shedeur Sanders.
Well, that's one of them probably won't be available.
But if he likes him,
you draft him.
And he said, I'm going to draft him.
Yeah.
Would you draft him?
Yeah, 100%.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have
100%. You have
100%.
to. Yeah.
You have to. If you're going to keep Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski in these positions, then you have to empower them and you have to trust their decision-making process.
Right. And
that being said, if they don't think any of these quarterbacks are that good, then you can't draft them. We'll never know the truth.
And this is the great thing about the people sitting at top. If they don't draft them and those people turn out to be superstars or great, they're going to be held accountable for that.
Right. That's right.
It's just what it is. Like, so I look at it like this. The fans have a right to, they're not general managers. Fans have a right to question you when they see a guy you drafted #1 overall go to another city and ball out.
Yeah.
They're going to question you. You're going to own that. So, look, if it was me, I wouldn't tell him, I wouldn't say nothing about maturing and maybe Baker was a different guy. I just straight up and say, you know what? When you make decisions, sometimes they work out for you for the good or the better. It worked out for Baker. He's doing tremendous there. He was a good quarterback there. He's elevated his game in Tampa Bay, and keep it pushing. Like, to me, you own those decisions. You guys are the ones who are making the decisions on who to move. And I'll be interested to see how this plays into the way they think about quarterbacks, because for me, I don't know what they value in quarterbacks. Like, I don't know what their philosophy is, because frankly, they haven't been very successful with the quarterbacks here. So I want to know what they're looking for, how do they want to go about it, and Kevin Stefanski to say, like, listen, just be transparent and say, listen, I want a guy that does A, B, and C, that can get the ball down the field, don't make mistakes, don't turn the ball over. I'll be refreshing just to hear that, because I don't know what he's looking for.
I just thought of this. This isn't a perfect comp, but in my mind, this makes sense. When we talk about Baker, we talk about Baker's growth. We talk about he's not the same guy in Tampa that he was in Cleveland. This just occurred to me. I'll go back to when LeBron left Cleveland, right? And he goes to Miami. And when LeBron came back to Cleveland, he was not the same guy. He needed that time in Miami to grow as a person, to see how the Heat culture, and Pat Riley did wonders for LeBron's career in terms of leadership and winning and all that stuff. Yeah. And when he came back, he was a child when he left Cleveland, and he was a man when he came back from Miami. And it sort of feels like Baker was a child when he left Cleveland, and he had some growing up to do. And certainly, I'm not saying the Carolina and the LA culture is what did it. I'm saying for him, it was internal, of humbling himself and being embarrassed and learning that he wasn't what he thought he was, and he had to take better to coaching and all that. And would LeBron have ever gotten to the status had he never left Cleveland? I don't know.
We'll never know.
Would Baker have ever gotten to this point without ever leaving Cleveland?
And you know what I want?
He might have, but
he might have.
We don't know.
You never know.
What I really want, and this is a thing where for Stefanski, maybe he can say, well, I'm not the same head coach as when Baker was here. Maybe this 3 and 14.
That's true. That's true. He's not.
This 3 and 14 humbles him. Maybe it shows him some of the errors that he had in training camp or the way he talked to people. And maybe this time around, when he does get an opportunity to quarterback, he can say, look, things was – I wasn't – because we forget Kevin Stefanski is how old?
He's not an old guy. I don't know.
Late 30s.
He's late 30s. That's one of the youngest.
Maybe 40.
Yeah, he's one of the youngest coaches
ever. He's been here 5 years.
Yeah.
So
he might be 40s now.
So now there's an opportunity where he can show some growth in figuring out, okay, where did it go wrong last time? How do I rectify this and make a difference this time?
I think it's interesting that the Browns have had what seems like one of the softest training camps and preseasons. They don't play guys. They're very, I think, overly cautious, and yet they've had more injuries the last 2 years, it seems, than any other team. So that's not working.
Their strength.
I loved, people were criticizing Dan Campbell in week 17 for playing his guys. because technically that game didn't matter. Not last night's game, but the week before. And I was like, that's how he plays. And maybe it's going to hurt him. Maybe his craziness is going to hurt him in the playoffs. I don't know, but the players love that. Like, players want to play. They're not worried about getting hurt. They're not thinking about getting hurt.
The Browns, this is one of those off-season situations where McNuggets takes a deep dive into, like, injuries versus other teams' injuries, but it just seems like we're injured a lot. I mean, in a whole lot. And our guys look like it take a little bit longer to kind of come back, or the injuries linger. I don't know what their strength and conditioning program is, and I don't know what the numbers look like compared to the rest of the league, but I'd be interested to see where the Browns' injuries are compared to.
I got you before yesterday, so this is through week 17. G. I actually have the number for you.
Oh, dang.
According to sportsinfosolutions.com, so I'm taking this off that. The Browns, where do you think they ranked in terms of total games missed by play? This is the guys only that went to IR, so the guys that went to IR, not week to week.
I've middle of the pack.
Third most.
Third most.
The Lions by far the most, and their defense
amazing.
Completely decimated.
Yeah.
And in terms of total points per game on offense and total points per game on defense, the Lions on defense literally triple every other team in NFL. I think they lost 9 guys at some point that had to go on the IR. Mm-hmm. The Browns second in total points per game on offense and defense in terms of games missed by players on IR. So they're near the top. Yeah. Certainly near the top. And if you look at the other guys near the top, Lions, Browns, Cowboys, Giants, 49ers, Titans, Raiders were the top 6.
Mike, one other thing I want to hit on from Andrew Berry before we move on to the next topic. Jason, you referenced earlier what he said about Myles Garrett, Cleveland to Canton.
Yeah.
He also, in that same answer, talked about, hey, we don't anticipate trading from our core pieces. So, at least what he's saying now is they're not planning on blowing it up. And I didn't think we thought they would necessarily do that unless Myles Garrett forces his way out of here. But 2 other things in a similar vein in terms of the roster that I just wanted to hit on quickly. One, JOK. There seems to be a lot of question marks about his long-term status because he's been out half this year, and both Stefanski and Berry were like, we hope he's going to play next year. That's pretty concerning. It's scary.
Yeah, obviously, when it first happened, I was led to believe that it wasn't as traumatic as clearly it has turned out to be.
Right, yeah.
That was just from talking to a couple players in the locker room who felt like the initial, like that day of, it was going to be okay. And obviously it's much more serious than that. So we'll see. They've been pretty tight on the information with him in terms of where he's at and his status. That's obviously that's a huge loss if they lose him for next year.
Yeah.
I don't know that's necessarily a blow it up. I think, again, Myles to me is the hinge point of the entire offseason.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is number one with a red circle around it of what happens there. And beyond that, does Joel Bitonio walk away on his own? That's another gate. Now, is Joel the player that he was 5-6 years ago? No, but he's still a very, very good left guard, and he's a tremendous leader in that locker room.
He said he thought he was playing his best football at the end of the year.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
The tape disagrees with that.
Yeah. But he's still a very good player.
He's still a starting player in the NFL.
He's very, very good.
You think he's going to retire? I don't buy it. But I don't know. You know him way better than I do.
I don't think he will, but I think he needs this time away. To decompress, recharge, get away. This was hard this was a hard year on a lot of guys. Because again, we joked about it, but it wasn't a joke in October. Their season ended before the Guardians season.
Yeah.
And they still had 2 more months that they had to show up every day and work. A lot of these guys need to get out of that building and they need to go lay on a beach somewhere and just get away and flush this.
And final thing from Berry, his comments about Nick Chubb. There was a lot of respect shown to Nick Chubb, but his answer did not make me think that he's definitely going to be back.
I would like to see them give him an opportunity, but you can't count on him. I don't believe you can count on him in any sort of major significant role going forward.
You bring him back on a cheap deal with incentives to be your number 2 back.
Yeah,
then you see what happens.
And you hope for the best.
Yeah, but they've got to address the position in the draft.
I don't think you can count on DeWand at left tackle.
No, absolutely not.
I don't think these are major spots that are difficult to fill.
Yeah.
Like left tackle and quarterback. Okay, well, you can fill one of those at number 2. You can't fill both of them.
Nope.
And even if you wait till the second round, even at the top of the second round, it's a lot harder to fill those 2 spots. So It's not necessarily that you're going to blow the whole thing up and you're going to trade all your veteran players. It's just that the holes that they have are really significant holes, and I don't know that you can address them all appropriately in one offseason.
No.